would I should invest in the Chinese market is a big question that all of us sometimes think about when we discuss the Chinese market, if you invest in it. And I hope in the end of the webinar you would be able to know how to do the pre-entrance market research and maybe perhaps answer the question yourself on why China? Why should I choose China as a target market? We've been hearing about China and the potential in the Chinese market. Some of us think that the Chinese market is very big. So because of that fact, it would be good for me to invest in the Chinese market. There's a lot of potential. It's not always true, but many of us believe so. Sometimes your product is being sold all over the world, being sold pretty well, and you believe that because of that it has potential in China as well, so you want to enter China. Some of us wish to enter the Chinese market because the product is very revolutionary, cost-effective, user-friendly, has a lot of good features. So you believe it will also be good for the Chinese client as well, but you're not very sure about that. Some of us perhaps had few orders from China or already have distributors in China, and you believe that there's potential in Chinese market because of that fact, but you don't know if to invest a large sum of money, perhaps to open a representative office or a daughter company in China, but you're not sure what will be the good strategy for you to do it. Some of us hear that the Chinese government support and invest different kinds of technologies, so perhaps an exporter like you would like to enter the Chinese market and perhaps enjoy some government incentives, and you don't know what kind of incentives are available in the market. So for you, the pre-entrance market research is very important. So, to begin with, I wish to say that China is a very difficult country to export to. China has many difficulties result from many aspects in China that that we're not very aware of. A lot of people think that China is a single market, but China should not be perceived as a single market. Every province and every city in China are very distinguished from one another. If you're selling well in Beijing, it doesn't mean that you will sell well in Shanghai or in any other provincial capital cities or in second-level cities in China. Consumers in rural China have very different purchasing habits than urban consumers. And it's important to know, because when you think that China is a very big market for your products, you have to be very specific of what you say. The different market segment you're aiming to, and you have to know how big your specific market actually is. The second issue is the distance. China is a very big country, and we're not talking only about to export your products from your home market to China, but also in China the distances are pretty big. Because of the great distances, trade in China is not simple at all, so you have to take that into account. Also, international trade has all sort of complexities resulting from the different form of government, legal system, taxation system, central government, local government policies. You're not very familiar with that. So there's a lot of bureaucratic barriers in China that can make it really hard for you to do business. You should be aware of that when you choose China as a target market. In addition of that, all of these complexities, you have to know that China has a substantial language barrier you should be aware of. Most of Chinese senior executive and government officials cannot talk Chinese. I'm not sure how many of you have been to China before, but you've probably noticed that people older than 40 years old cannot speak English. Communications usually are made through junior staff in a company or interpreters, either you bring with you or they bring with them. Also, a lot of valuable written information would not be available to you unless you can read Chinese or hire an employee who does that. So the language barrier also difficulty when you do business in China. Chinese have all sort of cultural differences, and some people complain that playing the Chinese game is not easy at all. The pace the Chinese do business is usually slower. Decision-making process involves all sort of individual, usually pretty slow. And they would like to know you and learn how to trust you before they'll be willing to deal with you. So they tend to mix business with pleasure over fancy meals and drink excessively in social events and try to make friends with you while they're trying to negotiate with you. And for some people, it seems like a paradox. But that's the way the Chinese play the game sometimes. They try to make friends with you while doing the negotiation, and you play these friendship games over drinking and karaoke bars. And some people just, when they go to China, they don't understand that that's the game they should play, and sometimes they get upset at the Chinese behavior, but you know that there's cultural difference. Also, another thing about cultural difference is criticism. Chinese try to avoid criticism as much as they can. They try to speak indirectly about issues sometimes because of that fact. Criticism is very insulting when done in a forum bigger than meeting in four eyes. Foreigners, sometimes they try to solve issues directly by bringing forth all sorts of problems in big meetings and often fail to achieve any goal because the Chinese usually do not try to solve things out in the open, especially if it's criticism of their superiors and so on. I have a story I want to share with you. Now, recently I was invited by a senior officer in the Israeli police to assist the police to host the Chinese provincial chief of police of Jiangsu province. There are a lot of very high-ranking officers, delegation, and I needed to help them for communication and to sort all those problems they may have during negotiation and stuff. And since the diplomatic delegation wanted to promote mutual friendship relations, I told the officers not to bring any real problems they may have with China because it may be perceived as criticism and place the Chinese people in an awkward position. But the atmosphere usually was very good, and we were joking with the Israeli counterparts, and we had a tour around the headquarters and the crime lab, and when we came to visit the narcotics lab, the head of the lab, he was very excited to see the Chinese and tell him, oh, people from China, you should know how much drugs coming to Israel from China and how many new drugs are being produced in China and just to be exported to Israel and see and give him a lot of evidence how Chinese drugs are coming into Israel and how bad it is. So what happened was actually that the Chinese chief of police, he kind of lost face in a way. And he stopped smiling for at least 20 minutes, and it took time until the atmosphere started to loosen up a bit. But the criticism might have been done in the proper channels after they leave. You can send them all the evidence and stuff. No need to raise all the problems all at once, especially when they come to make friends with you. It's a kind of cultural difference. I don't think any other chief of police from Western country would react.
And now I got a question, please.
A little bit, of course.
Do you think that such a story can cause irreversible problems, or it's something that can be you must be avoided?
Well, sometimes it happens that during negotiation, especially in the early stage, you bring a lot of problems of the other side, and the other side might think you suspect instabilities in a way, and especially when you meet people, doesn't matter if it's a delegation that came to promote friendship relation or you're trying to locate dealer or distributor in China, or maybe perhaps sign a deal. And the way the problem's coming, usually slow process, you bring it usually to the junior staff before, and they're preparing before the meeting, and when the meeting is coming, you probably have answers ready. Never contradict their officials in a way that's saying that they did something wrong. And even though they sometimes do something wrong when you want to express it, but you don't do it in a very rude way out of the open in front of other people that make them feel that they lost face. The process that they do it is usually indirect and very slow. You don't expect to solve all the problems all at once. It might take a few days, it might take a few months, but you don't try to make the atmosphere really bad in a way that you just bring forth all the problems all at once. That's a little bit from my experience.
Mm-hmm.
You
Okay.
need to be more patient with them.
Okay. Also,
although if your interests are very strong, it will not damage your relations.
okay. I also encourage our audience to ask questions through our chat window. We see the questions, and Enav or I can answer those with no problem.
Mm-hmm.
We'll stop for questions from time to time.
All right. Then I may proceed, I guess.
Yeah.
The thing is that the reason that doing business in China is sometimes very complex, that China is very big, and reality in the surface level could be very different than what it seems in the macro level, in a macro perspective. Let's say that we're talking about the 5 years plan. It's always, people talk about it, how much money the Chinese government invests in different industries. And the Chinese government is very enthusiastic also to tell everyone how much money they put in different industries, but you don't know how exactly it's related to you. So let's say that you come from the high-tech industry, and you heard that the Chinese government is promoting high-tech in China. Then you should know that they invest billions of dollars, but only in few places, not in all over China. So you must know the specific zones that when they promote high-tech industry. And you should be also aware of the fact that there's a lot of relations, very complicated interpersonal relations between all the officials. So not all the governors or the mayors of cities receive the same amount of money. So you need to know in the surface level who actually receiving the money from the surface level. And it's very complicated. It's very complicated because not very obvious. And during you make the pre-interest market research, you slowly find out actually where the money goes from. I will talk about it in toward the end of the lecture, but you will understand a little bit more about that. So China is a very difficult place to do business. A little bit talk about foreign companies exporting to China. Most foreign companies do that through distributors and dealers, resellers. They having marketing network in China. Usually exporters that come to China do not open their own companies in China and sell directly. Most of the small exporters, they do so through local companies. Usually exporters that do not sell